How about maybe the funnest fight on this fucking card, to be quite honest with you? We stay in the bantamweight division. Petr Yan, the former champion who lost his belt to Aljamain Sterling, takes on Sean O'Malley. This is a number 1 contender versus, at the time it was made anyway, a number 13 ranked contender. BC, what is the best case argument for Sean O'Malley? Tell me how Sean O'Malley wins.
That although he hasn't been able to show it yet, some of his doing, some of his bad luck, some of his 2-year USADA suspension, right? He never quite got the full arc the way it's normally done. So there's still inconclusive evidence of him losing to Marlon Vera. You know, it's not a fluke. I mean, he lost by TKO injury, but it doesn't tell the full story. Neither does coming back against a consistent stretch of competition that wasn't overly great. And, you know, we know what was going on with his contract, and now they, you know, re-signed him, and he's going to get paid for the opportunity to be a star. And if he does, he's going to get paid a lot more than that. But we don't know. And when we don't know, we can get mad at times and say a guy doesn't deserve it. And I mean, Dana White just confirmed the winner of this is getting the title shot. We pretty much knew anyway that was going to happen, because you can't deny a star like O'Malley when that momentum's coming. The best case scenario in saying that it's possible here is he's a dynamic striker. That's the greatest weapon I would want for him in a fight against, you know, Petr Yan, who has so little holes. You know, I mean, you know, if any, right? Yeah, the back-to-back losses there against Aljo, but is just as good as it gets. And I know both sides said they asked for the fight. Well, the fans have to be happy for it. It's a number 1 contender fight. But if Sean O'Malley has that magic, that's why. So look, I want to stay here. People are saying the best way to describe this fight is it's kind of Aldo versus McGregor, UFC 194. Do you buy that? Because I think that best explains the argument of why and how I think Sean O'Malley has the opportunity to potentially win this fight by stoppage without showing us everything he has and teaching us everything he's got. Maybe it's not as likely, and that's where you can use your betting money how you believe. But if he's going to win, Luke, I do believe it'll end up being kind of the poor man's Aldo McGregor. Am I crazy here? I mean, that's what it is, Luke.
I guess I just don't even really understand the Aldo McGregor argument.
The idea that he might not actually be better than Petr Yan, and he may not actually be as good as the hype ever says he will be, but that doesn't mean there's not an opportunity for him to win it. That doesn't mean he's armed with the ability to do so. And if he is better than we think he actually is, and he looks pretty damn good, right? You get that momentum and that magic. Sometimes moments happen. That explains to some degree McGregor Aldo. I think that's not an incorrect comparison if O'Malley wins and does it with a shot Yan doesn't see coming in a stoppage.
Yes, that in that way I could understand it. I get the sort of idea that Yan would come charging out of the gate. I think it's possible, but highly unlikely. And
I'm not saying 10 seconds, Luke. I'm not saying a 12-second repeat. It could be 2.5 rounds. But the point is, like, O'Malley doesn't have to be better than him to win this. So he is a very live dog here, in my opinion, Luke, because there is an element of, like, the star power leaps off of him. Now, is that star power just colorful tats and hair? Obviously, we believe he can strike. I think there's some magic to him, meaning that there's a ceiling that we don't fully understand where it is yet. Okay, the Marlon Vera fight has to be mentioned. We learned certain things there. It was not a good look. I didn't love his reaction afterwards. But I haven't. Do you think you've seen a hiccup in his game? I mean, I guess you have to then talk about the Pedro Munoz fight, right? Did you see enough negative things in there to give you pause? Again, I felt like it was weirdly inconclusive.
It was also weirdly inconclusive. I watched it again this morning. Pedro Munoz, for folks who can't remember, he was mirroring the same side stance. So if for example, if O'Malley went righty, he would go righty. If O'Malley went southpaw, he would go southpaw. So he could have that outside leg kick to batter. Sean O'Malley checked a bunch of them. Some of them got through, obviously. And I think most people had Munoz winning the first round, and then we never really got out of the second, and then it was the disaster that it was. What do you really draw from that? O'Malley was offensively muted in that fight by the distance that Munoz was covering, and those leg kicks that they weren't like, some of them were landing hard, some of them weren't, but it just kept O'Malley a little occupied, I think is the way I would put it, or just minimized in terms of what he could really get going. He was cooking up a little bit more with his punching in the second round. Some stuff was starting to get through before the eye poke happened, and then that was that. So, again, like, people are like, well, do we have a clear sense of O'Malley's upside? We don't. We don't have. It seems like it could be a lot. Do we have a clear sense of his vulnerabilities? Even that's a little murky, BC, because we're not exactly sure how much of that is the Vera fight was just a moment in time,
or
sure, something that you can scale. The thing for me is, I like, this is the one question I would have for the case for O'Malley, which is, who is the best dogged wrestler that O'Malley has faced? Top of your head. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
If you look at the guys he's fought, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority, are just A, strikers more generally, and B, guys that just wanted to strike it out with him.
But wasn't that the same narrative that McGregor faced heading into the Aldo fight? Because to some degree, the Chad Mendes win was inconclusive because of the short camp. To some degree.
Yeah, and then also McGregor had like injuries and like, had to have a weird strategy and stuff like that. So there's something to be said for that. The difference is that Aldo had lights out takedown defense, but he didn't have lights out takedowns. Petr Yan has very good takedowns, very good ability to find them, very good ability to have good ground and pound to hold people down. If I'm Yan, I'm testing the fuck out of that big time.
I'm kicking him in the calves and shins like it's going out of style. I'll kick him in the toe, Luke. I'll kick him anywhere. Okay, I'm just kicking him.
The kicking, I think, has to be part as well. You couldn't get away from it.
You need to be. Jan's as brutal as anyone in this game, and you need to be physical and brutal to make sure that you can't just break. Like we don't know who O'Malley is. He may be brittle at the end of the day. We don't know. You got to find that out early if you're Yan.
Right, exactly. I think you do have to test that part as well. But if I'm Yan, I'm going to look for takedowns, and I'm going to look for any kind of ground and pound where I can punish him, especially to the body, knees to the ribs. If you can do it, hard leg kicks if they can happen as well. But I want to put blood in his arms. I want to make him slow down because listen. Just think about it logically, right, BC? If O'Malley is at distance and he's dancing and he's feinting, and his feinting is excellent, by the way, very good at it, right? If he's doing that, that's a tough guy to beat. But if you can wrap up with him, at least force him to the ground, heavy ground and pound at times, certainly in transition, damaging the body, really kind of going forward, making him wrestle, making him work on those terms. Dude, that's just a very different kind of fight that, frankly, yes, there's a lot unknown about O'Malley, but the fact that we haven't seen him pass a kind of test like that makes me feel like that would be difficult as well. Now, the tape does show, look at the numbers here, takedown defense, 64% for Sean O'Malley, takedown accuracy, 50%. Those are fine numbers, especially for a guy who prefers to strike anyway. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not against anyone who's a really sincere, dynamic takedown threat. Well, hello, Yan is. If I'm Yan, I'm leaning into that all the way. By the way, takedown defense for Yan, 90%. Takedown accuracy, 61%. That is high, very high.
This is a great fight. And it's a great fight because of what we don't know, obviously. It's like, damn, I mean, this is such a big fight for Yan that I think is somewhat going understated too. I mean, the 2 straight losses and, he could stay as dangerous the rest of his career, but he could also lose this and never be back to where he was. The magic could be gone for him in terms of peaking and finding the very best of him. He has a lot to prove that he can come back and make those adjustments and be that gritty. It's certainly in him. I mean, Luke, that's why it's such a hard fight to bet, because there's so many more reasons to like Yan, and it goes beyond even what we haven't seen of O'Malley. Just O'Malley might be, I mean, again, that's why those McGregor comparisons kind of just easily stick in a weird way, because, is he more well-rounded than a Conor McGregor? Well, maybe, but, he's still heavy into what he does great and doesn't, take on too much other stuff. And yeah, there are questions and concerns. Did Munoz disarm him too easily, or if that was a 5-round fight, would O'Malley been able to keep the poise and still be as potent and dangerous and find his moment and deliver? He also could crumble before our eyes. It's hard to bet either way. And it's like, maybe this is what people hate about the show when they're a big Luke Thomas fan, because Luke's coming out with stats, facts, possible scenarios that he's seen before with his eyes. And old BC's over here talking about alchemy, Luke, and the cosmos coming together and the moon, in the moon of Cancer. And can that make somebody the best they've ever been for 3 straight fights when the sun's shining on them? But Luke, whether you think that's just the way it goes or there's some higher power connected, sometimes people that are destined for greatness find a way to get there no matter what. And for McGregor, there was like magic in that. Tim Tebow that 1 year, there was magic in that. I just watched that Jeremy Lin doc, right? There was lightning in a bottle for about 3 weeks there, and Jeremy Lin was pouring it all over him, right? It was like when those old people found those alien eggs at the bottom of that pool in Cocoon, and suddenly they're doing windmill dunks, and they don't need Viagra anymore, Luke. It was insane. Do you believe Luke Thomas, at the end of the day, go get into the cosmos with me, Luke, okay? Tune in, drop out, all that stuff. That Sean O'Malley is destined to get there. Because if he is, he's going to win this fight, Luke. And it's going to go beyond your analysis about takedown defense percentage. You know what I'm saying? You know exactly what I'm saying. You just don't want to believe that he may be the chosen one, Luke, and you can throw your pick up and it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I just, I can only introduce what are probable or possible outcomes. I can't introduce the totality of them, nor do I have a crystal ball to know exactly which one will, which makes any kind of analysis have to be hedged in that way. But I certainly don't believe in
overly romanticize
astrological nonsense, if that's what you mean. I don't believe in fate. I don't believe in destiny. I don't believe in any of that bullshit. There's total nonsense for people who are largely unthinking rubes. Anyway, to answer the question...
Look, you could argue that I was destined to get exactly where I am right now, and even Luke Thomas's darkness could not get in the way of that.
You worked hard to get here. You weren't destined for shit. You just made it happen. That's the difference. The point I wanted to make was, dude, like, is there a real possibility here, and not a bullshit one, that a guy like O'Malley, who has now at this point had inconclusive, I think your very appropriate term, moments that make getting a read hard to know, but quietly, and he's just getting better and better and better. You didn't get a fuller, clear sense of who he is. He arrives at this moment by hook or by crook, and then he just demolishes Jan. Yeah, absolutely. Is Jan deflated from his loss to Sterling, and is he second-guessing things? Certainly seems possible. Like, all these things are really real. MMA is fucking crazy. It is crazy, and it's batshit. But I just don't believe in nonsense like destiny. I don't believe in nonsense like fate. What I believe is skills and opportunity, and sometimes just a little bit of serendipity along the way. And so, not from the universe, just by how factors work out. And there are reasons to believe, very much so, that Sean O'Malley, you heard Dana White say, he could be a global superstar for us if he wins this bout. Like, holy shit, I don't think that's wrong at all. But
Luke, even serendipity needs some fuel to get there, Luke, and that's why I think the power, it was in Jared Cannonier's crystals until the Adesanya fight.
Was it?
But it was until that fight. I think that's his. Yeah. All
right.
I think that right nipple, it was like the kryptonite for the crystal. You know what I mean? The saggy nip, and then there we go. There it was. Yeah.
You mean Izzy's titty?
Yeah. Wow, I didn't think we'd get this deep, and I thought you'd shut that shit right down.
Well, but didn't they call it Tittygate? It wasn't it called Tittygate?
Yeah, Titty, yeah. I hope it's not PED on Titty, Luke. I hope not, okay?
Yes, of course not. It would ruin the fight. All right, BC, what do you think?
About this fight?
Give me a pick.
All right, I don't have the same confidence. I'd love to do the Dillashaw bit all over again, right? Or hey, I know Charles is great, but dude, Makhachev's coming on. I feel like this O'Malley thing is possible, Luke, and it would have to be part of what you're saying where Jan is just a little off. We don't know that. But O'Malley also has the type of surprising striking that could rattle him, that could hurt him, that could change it into more fight or flight mode. And if Petr Yan goes too far into the fight part of that, he could get stopped here. He also could absolutely break down Sean O'Malley in every single category and nastily sit on top of him and beat him. That's also in play. But I do believe in miracles, Luke. I do believe in magic. I've seen and felt shit, Luke, that you would shake you to your core. I think Sean O'Malley's going to knock him out and win this.
Wow.
And it's not the fan in me. I'm not telling you to put your money there. I believe Dillashaw, put your money on him. He's going to win this. There's no crystal ball telling me it, but sometimes, Luke, even real recognizes as real sometimes, Luke, and I recognize that O'Malley's got a rocket ship of momentum, and again, that rocket ship, like Star Wars, is all dirty and shit, right? We don't know for sure if he can clean it up completely. That Marlon Vera fight may be everything most people have needed to see, and they feel like they know who he is. I don't know if he's actually that dude, but he may win this fight without us actually finding that out, Luke. And if that happens, it will be a UFC 194 Aldo McGregor comparison. And that's the truth.
Listen, I take that possibility seriously. O'Malley has power. How big is the reach differential in this one? Let's see. O'Malley with a 72-inch reach, Jan with a 67. I mean, Jesus Christ. That's a lot, dude. That's a huge difference already for a guy who, fights tall too in certain ways. Fast in and out movement. We've seen one-punch knockout power. And even against Howley and Paiva, it didn't knock him out with one shot, but one shot completely changed the equation, and he finished him off thereafter. O'Malley knocking him out would not be surprising. And it's weird because I went with a guy with a less proven resume in the main event. Here I'm going to go with a guy with the more proven resume for that reason that it's more proven. I'm going to go with Jan. I just have too many questions about O'Malley at this stage. And I have too many answers about Jan at this stage. And there's good and there's bad. And this is a tight fight. Again, we go back to the odds. We currently have Jan at minus 265, O'Malley at plus 225. For a 1 versus a 13th ranked contender, that's fucking close. That's really close. But skills win fights, and we just know that Jan has more and is a little bit more, and particularly in the one area where O'Malley is against a guy who's got very good takedowns, somewhat untested. For me, I got to go with Jan in that one.